Hey, so Jesse, we talk a lot about college on this show.
Yeah, we do. And what we actually mean is Avondale University College, where we both got our bachelor degrees in ministry and theology.
Yeah, and that's also where we became buddies and we lived in the dorms, we ate at the caf, walked to class in the sunshine. It was great.
It was great. We had late night Macca's runs, we led in worship, and we also met some of our closest friends there.
Absolutely. Probably one too many late night Macca's runs for me. But, honestly, studying at Avondale was the best. And we're so stoked to say that this episode is sponsored by Avondale University College.
Called to make a difference?
Called to beat Avondale. Welcome back to Burn the Haystack with Josh and Jesse.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Josh.
And this is a show all about saving the best and burning the rest.
It sure is. And I'm asking, how did you find us today? Was it an algorithm?
I'd be very interested to know, how we get recommended, because surely not every person who listens is not word of mouth sort of thing. So that people must be getting onto us organically. I hope, at least. That's the hope of every podcaster, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember we were speaking to Sahil. So shout out to Sahil, a listener from, Avondale. We met him in Brisbane when we were at that Brisbane big camp just this time last year, pretty much. And and he told us he found us through Spotify.
Isn't that interesting?
Another... I don't know if it was recommended to him on Spotify, because I don't really know much about how podcasts work on Spotify, because I don't listen to podcasts on Spotify.
They're kind of creating their own. They're kind of creating their own thing on Spotify, trying to redefine what podcasting is, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, which is cool. And I'm interested in looking into it more. But anyway, I think he got recommended us, or he saw a friend. You know how you can see what your friends are listening to on Spotify? Yeah. I think maybe he saw somebody listening to us. I'm not. Yeah, one of those two. So that's pretty interesting, I guess.
It's definitely a world that I don't really understand too well, but I know enough about it to be intrigued and also slightly scared by it, and which is ironically what we're going to talk all about today. So I'm intrigued and scared for our discussion.
Well, so you should be. If you've ever seen the show Black Mirror on Netflix, no, let's not go down that path. Recently, look at us. We're being so productive. We're getting straight into the content today. What are we even doing? This is crazy.
What has become of us?
Yes. Where is the haystack? Okay. No. Anyway, we are recently. I've noticed on social media, funnily enough, there's been a bit of an awakening. A whole lot of realizations, probably over the past year and a bit, maybe year and a half. Really a lot lately, because there's been a Netflix show called The Social Dilemma, which has exploded. I did watch it. Have you seen it yet?
I have not seen it yet, so I'm not in on this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, it's fair enough. I've seen a lot of people talking about it and deleting their Facebook apps and stuff, which is so funny, because I've seen articles and stuff shared around this stuff for a good couple of years, all the same content that was in that documentary.
Yeah.
But the documentary just does it in such a good way. I would recommend it. Yeah.
So, okay, can you give us the cliff notes, for me and anybody else who hasn't watched The Social Dilemma? What's the snapshot thesis?
I don't know if I'm qualified to give a snapshot thesis. But,
what was your takeaways then?
No, well, I think it does a really good job explaining the problems social media is causing in our social lives. Hence the name Social Dilemma. Yep. And it creates some good pictures of sort of really basic what the algorithms kind of look like and how they're interacting with you. They've got this, because it's a documentary, but they also have these a mini drama that goes through it too. It's these actors playing these parts, and there's this one guy who's using his phone heaps, and then you see the algorithm engaging with him in the phone. Like it's like three different people. One is
Right.
monetization. The other is, I think it's like alertness, and the other one is, well, I can't remember. But it's like these three main things that the algorithms are trying to push on you.
Yep.
And you see them, it's like they're in the screen, but like looking at him through the screen.
Right.
And
So it's like a personification.
yeah, and so they're like, "Oh, quick, let's get a post from his ex-girlfriend. Put that up there. Yeah, nice." And then throw in a quick shoe ad. Bam, sold that for 30 cents. You know, that sort of thing. Like that sort of thing. It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
So I think it does a really good job of trying to driving people to action, just because of how emotive it is.
Yep.
And it's got some really cool interviews with the guy who helped make the like button on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the previous president of Pinterest. What's the guy's title? It was like he had a really specific title, which I found really intriguing, but I've forgotten it. But essentially he worked in ethics at Google.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but he had
Ethics.
some name. It's like I don't know. Anyway, ethicness.
Ethicist? Like an ethicist?
Ethicist. Yeah, that might have been the word actually.
I think that's
it
the
was.
actual title for somebody who is like a scientist in the realm of ethics, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think he was ethicist at Google, I think. But somebody fact check that on me. Yeah, so that was really cool. So it does a good job, I think. It's got some really interesting interviews with different people. Yeah, and I guess it just explains, I guess a lot of that sort of the current snapshot of what it's doing to us, and how like teen like anxiety and depression rates are soaring higher and higher and higher pretty much ever since 2011, which is when social media became available on smartphones. And it's just getting higher with each generation, just out of control. Like it was sitting pretty stable, but then 2011 it's just gone up and up and up and up year on year.
Yeah, because it's not like Facebook is, in the last 10 years. I think Facebook is almost 15 years old now at this point in time. I think Facebook launched early 2000s. I remember my first Facebook account 2008, 2006 maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think mine was 2008 or 2009.
Yeah. Which is, it's been around for a long time, but I still remember my first Facebook account was this dinky looking, profile. Like, the UI was so bad.
It looks so different, to how it does now.
Yeah. And it was so different in terms of the functionality. Like when we first started our social media accounts, I think the same expectations that we had for platforms like Bebo and MySpace, that was sort of what we thought Facebook was, just a way to connect with your family and friends and see what they're up to, whatever. But it has kind of, it's ballooned into this whole new thing, which is so surprising and is kind of out of control. I don't know. Is that too like dramatic to say that it's kind of out of control?
No, I think that's spot on. Because another resource that Jesse and I have both listened. Jesse found it and recommended it to me, and I fell in love with it. Is a podcast called The Rabbit Hole by the New York Times.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic podcast. I started listening to it a little while ago. You can go and listen to it anywhere you find podcasts. But basically what it tracks is, so it follows several people. It starts with this just young guy who started watching YouTube videos from this, I suppose, more right-wing, moderate Canadian YouTuber. And then
I think at the beginning it was just self-help stuff. I don't think there was any sort of political leaning. Yeah, just from my memory of it. Yeah,
like a Jordan Peterson type person. I'd never heard of Stefan Molyneux before I listened to the podcast, but when I listened to his earlier stuff, I realized, so he's kind of like a Jordan Peterson type. But then Stefan Molyneux today is a very different person than when he first started out, and he doesn't have the professional credentials that Jordan Peterson does as well. But anyway, the guy, this young guy who goes on this journey with Stefan Molyneux, eventually starts to interact with and follow different people, and just the crazy roller coaster of the way that these YouTube personalities has shaped his personal life and his personality and his political leanings, as well as the dark side of QAnon and the secret societies and the conspiracy theorists and the Alex Jones and all this sort of, Yeah. But the fact, I suppose if I could, my takeaways from the rabbit hole is basically how crazily the internet has impacted our lives, and it's almost done it under the radar. Like, mainstream society didn't see this coming, and yet it is fundamentally shaped and changed the way that we see each other and the way that we see the world. Which,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting point. Like, yeah, they both are real. I would say, yeah, listeners, check out both of these resources, because they have a lot of overlap, but they both have really individual parts that the other just totally misses out on. So one thing I found from The Social Dilemma, because Toast's interview with the guy who helped make the like button, and he was saying it's so weird because our initial thoughts around creating that was to spread positivity. It was all, we want more people to feel liked. That's what it was all about. We had no idea. Nobody on the team ever thought it would end up in like teens who are struggling with negative thoughts and depression and anxiety, and way further down, because they didn't get enough likes on a platform.
It becomes like a vanity. It becomes like a vanity metric and a self-worth sort of metric as well.
Yeah. And they said no one ever would have thought of that, and that's the thing. I think, it's just wacky to think like how innocent and probably, like, I think actually, like, they had really good reasons to make it at the beginning, I don't think anybody would have predicted the kind of crazy world we're in now with all of these tools that we have at our disposal.
It's good intentions, right? Like, it was started with good intentions, and yet it's ballooned out of, I don't know if Facebook necessarily. I mean, I've seen The Social Network movie and some documentaries around Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know if Facebook itself was started with good intentions.
Well, not in that movie. No, not really.
No. But in terms of like what Facebook and Google, specifically those two companies who have impacted so much of our modern internet, in terms of what they've done, it's interesting how good intentions have completely been hijacked by the hive mind of the internet and turned into something completely different. But I will also, like, not to give people a pass for, creating a tool that could potentially be used for evil, but I just think that this is such an unprecedented time that we're living in terms of the technology that we have at our disposal, and I feel like people are creating things that they don't even know how they're going to be used,
Yeah, and they're growing so fast, and with really not much in the way of like government legislation or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's just like the Wild West, really, just going crazy.
That's why
not that I know anything about the Wild West. It's just a good expression to use. And I think of that movie with Will Smith, with the
Wild West.
Yeah. That giant mechanical spider thing at the end.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Anyway.
But that's why I think like, whether it was 2019 or 2018 when Mark Zuckerberg testified in front of Congress, that's why that whole thing was so weird to me, because on the one hand, Facebook is a corporation that is under the jurisdiction of the American government. But on the other hand, it feels like so much bigger than just one country, and it impacts the entire world. So it's like, how can one government keep Facebook accountable for something that happens in Syria? Like we saw the Arab Spring, mostly because of Facebook. The people being able to organize protests and, eventually destabilize entire governments just a few years ago, all because of this one social media application developed by a company in California. Like, what?
Yeah, right? It's crazy. And I think we're, over the last couple of years, we're really starting to see the effects it's having. Particularly last year with, here in New Zealand, we had the shooting at Christchurch, which was horrible. But that guy pretty much radicalized through just online. I don't know exactly what platforms, but essentially, it was all just through, I'm guessing, these sort of spaces. And
he used Facebook to live stream as he was doing it. He took the time to set up a body cam so that he could live stream the whole thing as he was doing it, which is it's ridiculously horrific.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. And QAnon, which we've seen recently with that guy arrested, going to the pizza shop with a gun to liberate the
slaves?
sex slaves or whatever that were there in the basement, and then there wasn't even a basement in the pizza shop. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
People are just getting so, taken down the rabbit hole. That's why the podcast is such a good name. Podcast. By the way, guys, that podcast is only 8 parts. So it's pretty, it's not like we're asking you to commit to a whole 3-year podcast like ours has been, but
once you listen to one episode, you will be hooked. I guarantee it.
Oh, absolutely. They're all 20 minutes. So anyway, it's worth a listen. But anyway, and so we're really starting to see how much these online things are affecting our everyday lives with radicalization, but also just with the way we interact with each other. I still find it a little bit weird. And not that I don't do it, but when you walk and you see a group of friends sitting together, but no one's talking, they're all just on their phones. You know what I mean? In a public space. I get it. If you're all chilling at home or whatever, sure. But it's weird when they're all sitting at a park or something.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm not doing it judgmentally. I'm kind of because I'm just it's just weird, But
what a boomer! What a boomer!
That's the thing. I do it too. That's the problem.
Yeah. Totally.
I'll be sitting there and realize wait, I'm doing exactly that thing that I think looks so weird. But okay, boomer. I'll just stop. And I guess the reason we wanted to talk about this is because Jesse and I have been big advocates for using the digital space for ministry.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't or anything, but I think it's probably time for us to talk about the tensions in that too, and some of the things we see going on in the online space. And I guess we don't have answers. No one has answers. That's the scary thing at the moment. But maybe we can have some practical tips at the end. But we've just got questions and tensions we're wrestling with about, we've seen how these algorithms and social media are affecting the political, the social, and all these other things. But in reality, we have to be real and say that these algorithms and social media platforms, they're affecting our theology as well, I believe.
Yeah, and that's really the heart of this episode, is how our theology, and I suppose, look, theology is much more of an umbrella than just one thing, because the reality is our theology, aka our view of God, affects our missiology, how we spread the message of Jesus through the world so that people can come in contact with the love of God and ultimately be transformed by it. It affects our ecclesiology, the way that we do church. And it also affects our eschatology, how we view revelation of God, apocalypse, and ultimately how everything's going to wrap up. And there's so many different theologies around that. But and there's 2 things I just wanted to say at the top. The first thing is that this topic is exactly the reason why we started Burn the Haystack in the first place, because when we looked at Adventist media, by and large on the internet, most of it was pretty negative on Adventism. And also the stuff that was made by Adventists for Adventists, or certainly for non-Adventists, whatever, a lot of it we found very questionable in terms of the ethics and, all that sort of stuff. So that's the first thing. And there was a second thing. I've forgotten what the second thing was. Oh, yes. The second thing was I don't think it's necessary that we really dig into exactly like the algorithms and how the algorithms work. As we said at the top, we're not very, we don't really understand how it all works very well, but I don't think it really matters, because if we were to talk about algorithms today, chances are tomorrow they'll be completely different. That's just how they work. So if whatever we share right now in terms of how the algorithm actually works, tomorrow will probably be different. When it comes to Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, they're always changing, morphing, and more and more are directed by AI rather than human change. So algorithms are just that. They're very fluid and they're always changing. So when we talk about the way that theology is affected by algorithms, this is very much an unfolding conversation. I just don't think people have been cognizant of the fact that that's how algorithms work super well.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, I know, like we've had to change tactics several times in the way that we've done stuff on Facebook for Burn the Haystack, Instagram. Not so much podcasting. Podcasting's pretty... it feels pretty immune, to be honest, because it's just sort of its own thing. Again, with Spotify changing it, maybe these comments will date very quickly. But at the moment, with like an Apple podcasting app or with other podcasting apps I've seen, it's just you subscribe to who you want to subscribe to. You don't really get recommended. You don't finish listening to a podcast and then the algorithm will just magically recommend you another podcast from anywhere on the podcasting scene. You have to be subscribed generally to get them in your inbox. So this is a bit of a different medium, but it's a totally different story on YouTube or Facebook or even Instagram. I'm seeing these sort of Instagram podcast hybrid things popping up more. But even those, like you watch a movie, you watch a video on IGTV, which is Instagram's sort of longer form video side, and straight away it'll play you another video. Yeah. But you don't get to choose that video. It just scrolls up and plays it. You don't even get to see what's coming next. Which is
one of the reasons why I don't really use IGTV, because if I am watching a video, great, but I don't want to be blasted with a new video straight away. It just got too annoying for me. I was like, screw this. It's not worth it.
I see what they're trying to do, but I'm not here for it. Like I was actually listening to and we'll talk about this a little bit later, like a sermon. I call them sermon jams. It's like when people just like take a couple of minute segments or, something out of their sermon and just chuck it on a social media platform. Yeah. I was listening to one and legitimately it had moved on to another one and I didn't know because I wasn't paying attention until I looked back and thought, wait, he's wearing a different outfit. Oh, this is a different, I'm like, what the heck? That's not fair.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So, I guess, podcasting is in a bit of a different space, but that's sort of what we're seeing. YouTube recommends, and basically the way it all works at the moment is that if you watch or engage with particular content, the AI, the platform or whatever, will see how, know how long you watched it for and that kind of thing. And then it will, and especially if you smash that like button kind of thing or hit subscribe, it will then recommend you content that is similar to that. Yeah. Now, the old algorithm when YouTube first started was wild because it was just whatever video is getting the most views. Yeah. That would get recommended to you. So you'd watch a funny cat video and then instantly you're getting hit with the next, here's what everybody else is watching at the moment. And it led to like crazy sort of clickbait. You still get clickbait these days, but it's not as bad as what it was because back then your recommendation would only come through how many clicks you had on your video. I don't think they calculated watch time or anything like that. It was just how many people clicked on that video. Yeah. So that sort of tamed down a little bit with that change of algorithm, but now it's all, if you like something, it is just, hey, what's more like that?
Think of it like, so the algorithm is creating a profile of you, essentially, and over time, because it's so much more sophisticated than it used to be, over time, the algorithm will have a profile of who you are, what you like, what you watch, how long you engage with that content. And then based on that, we'll create suggestions for you to continue on the platform. Because at the end of the day, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, the sort of big three, their end goal is to increase your engagement time on their particular platform. That's the whole. That's the point. That's the whole point.
Well, so that they have more engagement, therefore they have more to offer advertisers.
Yes.
And they can hone in targeted ads, so they can make advertisers pay more because those ads are more likely to be successful because they're actually targeted at somebody who's more likely, like calculators, to be more likely to buy that product or whatever. So
yeah, and I suppose the sub point of that would be if a platform is offering some sort of direct sale funnel, that's more like Amazon sort of thing. But I think it's starting to become a little bit more like that, especially on Facebook, where you will have advertising that will link to a Facebook store. Like that's becoming a little bit more. I've never bought anything on a Facebook store before, but I have seen them more and more, and they seem to be starting to not drive you away from the platform to take you to the store on a different website, but actually integrate your browsing experience, your watching experience, your interacting with also a sale. So
yeah, which is where we're heading, which is crazy. Like, anyway, that's I'm interested in talking about that too, but kind of got to.
So we want to make this about ministry because that's obviously sort of our wheelhouse, but the other stuff is very fascinating nonetheless. Could we paint a picture maybe about sort of, let's talk about pre-YouTube, pre-Facebook. If you were, let's say, somebody who was interested in an independent ministry or some sort of figurehead or evangelist or whatever, and you wanted to share their content with the world and get more people watching them, what was the tactics that people would have to use to get the stuff out there?
Yeah. I really think probably, I guess like a pre all this stuff would have been like books. But, like you buy a book from some author who's like, whoa, they're speaking truth. I'm going to buy this book and share it with all my friends. Somewhat impactful, but I think tape ministry and then onto video and then onto DVD ministry.
Yeah.
Great forms of ministry. Don't get me wrong. A lot of good that's come out of it, obviously. But I know what would happen. Like say you find some preacher who is preaching about something and you're like, whoa, I've never heard that before. Like they are speaking straight to what the Pope's doing. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just call it out, man. Just call it out.
Something like that, or maybe it's, something else. I'm just using that as a fun example because we've all seen those sort of sermons. Well, I hope we've all... No, I don't know if anyway, I'm sure a lot of us have seen that kind of thing where someone's just like off on some tangent. It could be like conspiracy theory based, or it could be a total wacky interpretation of a text that you've never heard before. And this goes for anyone, but let's just talk about that sort of conspiracy kind of one, because this is where I've seen it the most. So there, there's this like real conspiracy preacher kind of thing. And then they're like, wow, this is so good. So they buy the DVD. They love that sermon. Then there's like maybe a set of 3 sermons on a DVD. Then they love that DVD so much that then what they do is they go and buy the entire box set of that DVD. They watch everything that preacher puts out. And it's probably got links to, I say links. What would they have done back then? Maybe recommendations.
A brochure, maybe, if you like Pastor Joe Blow's 10 steps to apocalyptic whatever, then buy his, I don't know, 23 steps to even more apocalyptic stuff.
Yep.
So imaginative.
And maybe there's some interviews on there with some of their pastor friends who also preach that kind of thing. So then you're like, oh, buy their DVDs too.
Yeah. Or maybe they're part of like a unified publishing house that publishes multiple people's content. And so it's like, okay, if you like Joe Blow, maybe you'll like Jack White or, Jane Green or whatever,
Yeah. Yep. Or they all might be a part of this one big ministry anyway.
Yeah.
And so then you start listening to all these preachers who all have the same maybe focus points, theology, direction, and then you love those DVDs and box sets so much you start sharing them with probably other people at your church. You think of like a small rural church out in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. Not that this happens in every church, but it's easy to picture. And then they're handing those DVDs around to everybody in the church, or videos or whatever. And then they're all of a sudden, everybody in the church is like really into it. And they're all just listening to the same kind of preachers from the same ministry all the time. You can see like there's some problems there. Like that could arise from that. It could be really great and healthy, but it could also be really problematic.
Yeah, I don't know that I've necessarily heard that many pastors, let's say, because, you know, we talk to pastors all the time. I've not heard that many pastors say, oh, such and such shared this DVD box set with me, and it was the best thing ever. And now we're taking the whole church through it. And like, yes, that content does exist and it has existed, but by and large, it's funny, man. The types of people who are willing and motivated to share this sort of content these sorts of people tend to like content that is a little bit more controversial, it's a little bit more out there, in your face, and not necessarily the most balanced. I think most people just like, if they hear a good sermon or they read a good book, they're like, oh yeah, sweet, maybe I'll share it with one person, but not I'm going to share it with literally every single person at my church, and I'm going to make them watch it. And if they don't watch it, then I'm going to call them a heretic or blind or whatever. You know, that's that. I don't know. I've just heard the horror stories of, you know, such and such has donated all these, or they've slipped it into our church library. And I turned up one day and this entire DVD box set is there, and I had to throw it in the bin or hide it away so that nobody could get access to it. You know, that sort of stuff. That's
yeah. So I was kind of giving a bit of an extreme example.
Totally.
More often it will happen like there'll be a group in the church who then form around this idea, and everybody else is a heretic except them, basically, which is never a healthy mind. I've never heard that in a healthy context. So anyway, so if you're in that group, just I don't know, maybe something to look at. But nowadays, the process has been streamlined.
Yeah.
So now, particularly with YouTube, it is faster, cheaper, easier. Plus, it can be done without a single other person in your church community ever even knowing about it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
yeah. So we definitely live in a world. I don't know why I'm struggling to say that phrase.
Because it's a Friday afternoon.
It is a Friday afternoon. We definitely live in a world where you can go down the rabbit hole without having to spend any money, without having to go outside your house, and you can just completely get enraptured and changed and shaped in a really potentially positive way, but also potentially really dangerous way, all without leaving your home, all without, you know, having to go anywhere and doing anything. And you can share this stuff around without doing anything either. You now have in many cases, direct line to ministries, to conspiracy theorists, to whoever. Some of the top conspiracy theorists in our faith tradition have now completely switched from doing DVDs and Blu-rays. Did they ever get to Blu-ray? I felt like it was always DVDs. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing a Blu-ray one. That would have been pretty
it's too expensive.
Level.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, so they've many of them have now completely switched to just YouTube. There are ministries that I've seen that get tens of thousands of views on YouTube.
Bro, I've seen millions.
Yeah,
from like Adventists.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So we need more subscribers as well.
Well, but I mean, it's not just. Again, I want to establish it's not just those. You know, those really traditional conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Like,
I kind of want to push back on that a little bit. No, you say
okay.
you say what you're going to say.
I want to say like that's definitely. I think I see that more, and from my perspective, I think it's more problematic. It leads to more problematic thinking, but I do want to say it can happen. It doesn't happen as much, but it can happen the other way. Like for example. You know, like one of these big mega preachers at the moment. Okay, let's use I don't like naming names, but just for the sake of it, Stephen Furtick, for example,
Sure.
right?
We always bring up Stephen Furtick.
We do, because he's so popular, and like everybody who follows us, when I go on Stephen Furtick's page, I see all of them following him too. So I feel like our audience knows Stephen Furtick for some reason. I know he's really good. Anyway, I mean, I don't listen to him much anymore, but I liked his older stuff more than his newer stuff. But anyway, that's a personal taste thing.
You're a true fan.
I'm a purist. I like the OG Furtick. Anyway, like, okay, so they do these cool little sermon jam things, 3 minutes, and then you'll get recommended another one, right?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing, like, there was a particular sermon that, I don't know if it was Stephen Furtick, but just for an example, but he would preach something, and because they take these little 3-minute sermon jams out of their sermon, so it doesn't have the context of the whole sermon, and they'll say something and it can be misconstrued, or it can be not what I believe, right? Necessarily, but it's really subtle. But then you'll get recommended more and more and more and more Stephen Furtick. The more you watch, then you'll get John Gray and Judah Smith and all the same guys that are doing all the same stuff. Yeah, and then you'll end up like in all of these like just listening to and engaging with a whole lot of like that Pentecostal charismatic. Funnily, Stephen Furtick's actually Baptist, but originally, but now I think he's non-denom.
I don't think they're part of the Southern Baptist Convention anymore. Could be wrong.
Not sure, but anyway, and then you're ending up listening to just all of these sermons from the same kinds of preachers, and it can be the same problem. Do you know?
Yes.
Because then it can be like, wait, and I don't know. Anyway, I'm just saying it can happen the other way, but I don't think it's as necessarily problematic.
Okay. So I definitely see what you're saying. I guess I'm coming from an Adventist perspective. Because in our church, it feels like we don't really have any Stephen Furticks. Like we do have small time Stephen Furticks, aka people who are amazing preachers and who can use social media to get their messages out effectively. Yeah, okay, sure. We have little ones, but we don't have these millions and millions of followers preachers who, will put up a sermon jam on Insta and get like 200,000 likes on it. We do have uber conspiracy theorist people who will put stuff out and get millions of views on YouTube. And it just boggles my mind. We have the official church stuff. So if, Ted Wilson puts out a video from the GC or something on their YouTube channel, it'll get maybe a dozen views, 20, 30, maybe a couple hundred if it's something really, that makes waves throughout the whole world.
Really? Is that it?
Dude, some of the stuff that they put out from the official Adventist YouTube channel, the official Twitter page, the official Facebook page, I think they tend to get the most engagement on Facebook, but I think that goes for almost everybody. But some of the stuff that they put out is just a couple dozen views.
Wow.
Like it's not a lot. This is our official church channels. They don't do social media like the big dogs, even though they probably should be in that league. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, okay. I just pulled up the official Seventh-day Adventist YouTube channel. At the time of this recording, it's got 64.1 thousand views. Subscribers. Yeah. But like all their videos are 7,000 views around there, which is great. Seventh-day Adventist with 7,000 views, right? So I don't know how that...
Considering we have a church of 20 odd million people, not expect.
Yeah, wow.
Even if a quarter of our church was subscribed to the official YouTube channel, we're not doing very well. Even if a tenth of our entire church membership was subscribed, we're not doing well. It'd be more than that.
Anyway,
I don't know. Yeah. Here's the thing. And this is maybe going to be an offensive statement for some people, but I'm going to stand by it. I think there is a definitive link between extreme personality types and mental illness and the sort of conspiracy theory content online that generates so much hype amongst a rabid fan base. Not saying that every single person who watches a conspiracy video or who buys into a more extreme viewpoint is mentally ill. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is I think that there is a link between these rabid followings that insist on special information and are shaped by an algorithm. I think if it doesn't start with mental illness, I think it can result in mental illness in the same way that, and the reason I say that is because I think the same thing happens in that arena when it comes to theology as what happens to a teenage girl who doesn't get enough likes on an Instagram post and so their self-worth is shattered, or who posts a video on their Instagram, gets a whole bunch of likes and so starts to build their entire self-confidence around a fake persona. I think the algorithm and the way that it all works can drive people to extremes of personality, extremes of emotion, and I think it can really mess with our mental health.
Yeah, I would agree that a lot, it's been proven that social media is messing with our mental health. And so I think I would say even in the Christian arena, I would say, I don't know if I'm totally on board with everything you're saying there. I have to think about it a little bit more, but I definitely agree with parts of it that, there is definitely some effects this is having on our church's mental health too, with some of the rabbit holes that it's taking people down. And I think it's leading to big trust issues. I've seen like, some of the videos that people will watch on YouTube, they've shared with me, and a lot of them are just sowing massive distrust of your local church.
Yep.
Of anybody who's graduated from Avondale, or that, you know what I mean, that sort of thing, or which is crazy to me, or like it's sowing distrust into the official church, which I'm like, why? Like, and then they're recommending it to their friends, and then, again, they're going to watch. And so I think it's can become quite toxic to our communities.
Yeah. It's funny, once upon a time, our most respected institutions were things like the church. If you were in the Commonwealth Empire, it's the crown. And you held certain viewpoints of who deserves respect to be self-evident. And now that is just no longer the case. Levels of trust amongst clergy is so low. And yes, certainly some of us in the profession of ministry have done things to erode that trust. That's definitely true. But that doesn't mean that everybody is a bad guy in ministry. And if nobody has a track record of misdemeanors, then, but I feel like the trust that people have in the institutions is just, it's failing. I think
that's why these independent things are skyrocketing so much.
Yes. But I don't know if it's like a chicken and egg situation. But when I see the types of people or institutions or whatever that some people are putting their trust in now, I just go, you trust this more than you trust the official church? It just boggles my mind.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like the official church. Well, I mean, obviously they don't get everything right, but there's a lot of systems in place that, at least in our church, or like at least in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, it's the one I know. Yeah. I'm not speaking to general church institutions because I have no idea about other ones, but I know our one. There are a lot of safety nets and accountability in place.
Yes. Whether you like our president, our general conference president or not, the church isn't the president. The church is the church. The church is so much bigger than one person.
Absolutely. And then, so there's all these safety nets, like particularly financial safety nets. So it's like, they can't do this with that money. Like it's very protected. Again, I know there's been things happen, but I'm just saying in general. Whereas like some independent ministries or whatever, it's just one person, like 5 people doing whatever they want. They're just like, give us your money, and like, we'll make more videos. And it's like, guys, it's a little bit, I don't know.
And we talked about this.
They trust them more. And I'm like, I'm not saying they're untrustworthy. I'm just saying it's interesting that that's what people are choosing.
Well, look, I will say this. I mean, we talked about this. We did an episode on independent ministries last year, and we talked a little bit about this. I'm not saying that every independent ministry is greedy or is fudging their books or is not declaring their income because they have something to hide. But I also think that it's pretty obvious when you see certain leaders of independent ministries with personal jets and big homes and blah, blah, blah. And then you look at your local church pastor and wonder why he or she struggles to pay the rent. You know, like that should be pretty obvious, you know, who is being faithful and who is maybe has some questions need to be answered. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's oversimplifying, but
maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the big thing here is like we just have to be careful about what we're listening to, and again, like how you're engaging with a lot of this content too, and who you subscribe to. Like again, you can listen to a bunch of, I don't know, ideology from a theological point of view. And then like, I'm not saying, it's not even just YouTube. People go and join Facebook groups that are all around that. And then they're just like, you're getting it in your feed all the time. And so I think maybe we should get a little bit practical to finish up. But I think, you should just try and at least, not all the time, but you know, when you can, to just try and listen to people like a preacher or whatever that you don't know that you'll necessarily agree with. Could it be good? And to actually like take the time to read for yourself and study it for yourself. I know we say that a lot. Like,
do your own research.
Yeah. Well, there's problems with that too, because a lot of people don't actually know how to do their research.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
If you want to know the short version, doing your own research doesn't mean watching a video in your underwear on your couch. That's not doing your own research.
No.
if in doubt.
At least be wearing pants.
One of the things that I think, just to echo what you just said, Josh, is the one thing that I'm getting concerned about is people becoming ideologically possessed. And what I mean by that is somebody who is so caught up in a particular viewpoint or a particular echo chamber that they can't see outside of it and they can't see over it, and they cannot engage on any level other than using the language and the strictures and the methodology prescribed by whatever ideology they are possessed by. You become essentially a zombie because you cannot see the world any other way than the one that is presented to you by the ideologue or by the institution or by whoever is feeding this stuff to you. That's how people can justify dictators and despots, and how, you know, all the most horrible things in world history can come about, whether it's the Holocaust or the, you know, Armenian genocide or whatever, pick your poison, you know. Ideological possession is when you give up your own viewpoint and your critical thinking skills to think alongside the views of the party or the institution or the group. It's really dangerous. And so, what Josh just said is so important. Learn to dialogue, learn to debate, learn to see the world from other people's perspectives. That's the way that we grow. And I'll stop talking. But yeah, I think I'm really passionate about that, because I think we just don't want to do it. It's just so far from what we want to do these days.
Oh, totally, yeah. And even like reading books I think books are super valuable, especially in the theological biblical study world. Like, it's a shame book reading is constantly dropping, like how many people are reading books. But guys, seriously, that's still, even today, I listen to podcasts, watch great sermons, all those sort of things. So much of the best content is just in books. So anyway, books are great because algorithms can't mess with them, but they can mess with which books you buy. So that can be problematic too. But I guess it's another really cool piece of advice from Social Dilemma that they talk about just briefly. They said, never watch the recommended video. Always choose what video you're going to watch for yourself. And I was like, wow, like, yeah, it's funny. Like the guy who made the guy, they interviewed him in both Social Dilemma and The Rabbit Hole. The guy who invented who worked on the YouTube algorithm, the one that they still sort of use today, or is based off. Anyway, The one today is at least based off that one. And he's saying, guys, the way to get around it, just never watch a recommended video. Always watch what you choose to watch. And I was like, man, it's so hard though, because sometimes I just sit there like, the recommended one looks so appealing.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. And I think we could talk on this for ages and ages and ages, but I think it's a really good place to leave it. I think we need to be aware of the algorithms that are affecting our theology and our lives. And we got to remember that as much as it feels like these platforms are on our side, if they're feeding us the stuff that we want to see and the stuff that we want to hear and the conversations and the perspectives and the viewpoints that really align well with us, I think we've got to be really honest and brutally admit the fact that they don't actually really have our best interests at heart. At the end of the day, these entities are corporations. They're companies that want to make money, and they are doing it through you. You are the product, and you are ultimately the thing that affects their bottom line. And they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. As dark as that sounds, it is the truth.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. But I mean, some of them are taking positive steps and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's still but it all comes down to the bottom dollar, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, why on? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's leave it there. We can talk about this so much more. And maybe we will do another episode on it later on. Maybe we should learn a bit more about it and see some of the updates, use some examples later on. But for now, we just wanted to bring it to your attention, beautiful people. And we'd love to hear what you have to think about it. So get in contact with us. Best way to always contact us is burnthehaystack.org. You can go there, find links to, funnily enough, our social media, but also just a direct contact form if you want to email us. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have a story around this, or you've just got some thoughts about what we shared, or you know somebody who would make a great person to interview on this topic. This would be a really good topic to find someone who really knows their stuff about algorithms and AI and all that kind of thing.
And if you want to choose what content to listen to or to watch, subscribe to Burn the Haystack. That way you don't have to go through the recommendations tab. You don't have to do any of that rubbish. You can just listen to the content because you choose that content.
The best content.
Best content is the best content. Anyway.
We're the best.
And if you, ironically, I think what I'm about to say is going to go against what I just said. If you want other people to see this organically through their recommendations, leave a review, and that will help the algorithm to spread Burn the Haystack to more people. I feel like such a hypocrite, but
but we've done that every episode. We're not stopping now.
I'm not going to stop now. So you can do one thing to subvert the algorithm and one thing to help the algorithm. It all evens out in the end.
But the best way to grow Burn the Haystack is if you find this content valuable, share it with a friend. Just tell them about it. Yeah, that's it. Just make it organic. You know, that's what we want.
That's right.
Algorithms help too, so it's all there. How bad is this? What do we do? What do we do though? This is how we survive. I don't know.
We just live within our hypocrisy.
Is it hypocrisy? Anyway, all right. Let's leave it there. We love you guys. Stay awesome. That is Josh and Jesse out.